This is Bloomberg Technology. I'm Emily Chang. The Facebook hearings on Capitol Hill this week signaled the era of self-regulation for social media is likely over, and specific calls for more oversight over Facebook is growing. Earlier today on Bloomberg Television, New York City Comptroller Scott Stringer, who runs the city's pension fund, which is a big shareholder in Facebook, pushed to break up the power within the social network. Take a listen.
Separate CEO and chair, add more independent directors, have more transparency, and then let's get to the root of what's happening here. Our democracy is at stake, and one of the biggest companies in the world that we invest in is also at stake.
I want to bring in Rob Atkinson, president of the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation, a Washington-based think tank. Rob, so there you see one shareholder saying we should separate the CEO and chair position. Mark Zuckerberg holds both positions, and he has more power than almost any CEO ever has had within a company. Do you think that's going far enough, or is that going too far?
Well, look, I can't comment on management issues in any particular company. What I can comment on is the sort of hysteria that has gripped Washington, if not beyond that, over this issue. And we should all just take a very deep breath and calm down. Particularly troubling, you had a prior speaker, Roger McNamee, who proposed that somehow we should adopt European-style privacy rules in the U.S. because of a violation, by the way, of a European company who's already subject to European privacy rules. I think this kind of talk is incredibly risky. We've done an analysis at ITIF of the impact of what's called the GDPR, the General Data Privacy Regulation, and it would be very, very detrimental to the U.S. digital economy, very detrimental. And so I think we just all take a deep breath. Facebook is, the other thing I would add here, Facebook has gotten in trouble because it shared data with an academic researcher who then violated the terms of service. What people have forgotten about is Facebook had a very, very well-run and well-regarded program that academic researchers around the world, particularly in the U.S., have found incredibly valuable to find new insights. For example, they've used that research to better predict when women who are about to have a baby and then have a baby, who's most likely to be at risk of postpartum depression. There's a lot of really amazing research that's been done in a completely privacy protective way that Facebook has engaged in. And somehow we're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, I fear.
Hang on, Rob, because first of all, I want to know why you think this could be so damaging. And second of all, Mark Zuckerberg himself said he thinks GDPR is good and is going to apply it as a standard at Facebook around the world, despite the fact that there aren't laws here, mandating it.
Look, I can't speak for Mr. Zuckerberg.
Well, that's what he said.
Well, no, exactly. I don't know. I can't speak for why he would say it. All I can show and demonstrate is there's very clear evidence. The prior law to GDPR, which was much less onerous than what GDPR is, Catherine Tucker, who's a researcher at MIT, did a study comparing the European privacy regime to the U.S. And what her research found was that the ad effectiveness in Europe, so if you want to put an ad up on any kind of website, social media in Europe, it's up to 60% less effective. So in other words, 60% less money that you can monetize a user in Europe because of the restrictive privacy rules. So are we really saying we want all these internet companies to have 60% less money? Because that means 60% less new features, less innovation. And GDPR, by the way, the big area you mentioned earlier about AI, we released a report at ITIF 2 weeks ago on just looking at exactly the provisions in that 200-page bill and how it's going to negatively affect AI. If Europe stays with the GDPR, we can pretty much rest assured that they will be a backwater when it comes to artificial intelligence, because the legislation makes it almost impossible to use data for machine learning and analytics in Europe.
Now, yes or no, do you believe current laws are working?
I do believe current laws are working.
Okay.
You have to remember here, who violated the law here? It wasn't Facebook. It wasn't Facebook.
Okay,
it was
so you believe current laws are working.
Cambridge Analytica.
And yet 87 million people may have had their data mishandled. 2 billion people, all of Facebook users, potentially had their data, their public data scraped. And our elections were meddled in by a state actor, and we'll never know if they swayed the outcome or not. How can you say that our current laws are working?
Well, let me be precise. Our current laws with regard to privacy are working. The political interference issue, I think, is a little different, and there's where either some kind of new law or some kind of corporate agreement on practices, I think, are important. But on the privacy side, the current laws are working. What happened? That researcher in England violated the law. Cambridge Analytica violated the law. What are we going to do? Put in Sharia law and say we're going to cut your hand off if you do this? Those things are already against the law. They violated the law. Privacy regulation would not have changed this outcome one iota.
Well, but the Cambridge Analytica situation has exactly to do with privacy. Information was taken and mishandled, and that information could have been used to target people to meddle in the U.S. election.
Of course, and Cambridge Analytica broke the law. So we have a law. They broke the law. And why would an additional law that's more stringent make any difference? We have laws in the U.S. against driving too fast, but people drive too fast. So there are going to be scofflaws like Cambridge Analytica and that researcher at university who don't obey the rules and the laws. And having better and stronger laws aren't going to make any difference to that. The really important point to remember here also is, by the way, that data was used in a sort of machine-readable forms. It's not fundamentally clear that any individual was harmed. What Cambridge Analytica did was wrong. Well, but what we have to remember is when Zuckerberg talked about how they use data, they just have data. They match it with an algorithm to an ad. The ad then gets placed and it says, hey, Rob Atkinson, you ride your bike to work, so I'm going to give you a bike ad. That doesn't violate my privacy.
So, look, there's an argument to be made that third-party developers shouldn't have access to the information of friends on Facebook. But we'll leave it there. Rob Atkinson, Information Technology and Innovation Foundation President, thank you.